Hi, welcome to another Truth Outreach program. Truth Outreach is a program that's grounded in truth that brings you a comparison of the teachings of the Mormon Church and comparing them to Christianity. And of course, what we use as the foundation for this comparison is the Bible. God's Word, left for us here in this generation, left for us on earth to know His will. Good old B-I-B-L-E, basic instruction before leaving earth. So this is what we use as our foundation. I'm Rocky Hulse, and this lovely lady on my right is my beautiful wife, Helen.
Well, we just welcome you today to another program, and we are so blessed to be with you. And as I've said before, stay tuned, because this program is going to be exciting, and Rocky's got a lot of really good things to share with you, and we're just blessed again to be coming into your home today.
Thanks. It is going to be exciting. I like this one. This is kind of a favorite one program, and you're going to see why in just a minute. Now, we always use a couple of lead-ins on this program, a couple of quotes from Mormon leaders, Brigham Young and his first counselor, George Albert Smith, which we think justifies what we do in this program. So let's go ahead and put that quote up for you. This first one's from Brigham Young. I say to the whole world, receive the truth no matter who presents it to you. Take up the Bible, compare the religion of the Latter-day Saints with it, and see if it will stand the test. And this next quote is from George A. Smith, his first counselor, and he says, if a faith will not bear to be investigated, if its preachers and professors are afraid to have it examined, their foundation must be very weak. So we have the justification right there from two Mormon leaders to do exactly what we do here. And so we're going to examine some Mormonism today. And so let's just jump right into it. This is program number 64. The title of today's program is called Malta and the Book of Mormon. Now, before we begin today's program, Helen and I would just like to say that we're happy to be back. For more than a year now, we haven't filmed any programs because I was retained on active duty in the Navy, and I was sent down to Florida, stationed on the aircraft carrier, the John F. Kennedy, and we recently deployed to the Persian Gulf, wartime deployment over there, supporting our troops over Iraq, putting airplanes up, keeping our guys on the ground safe, and I was happy to do that, but I'm just as happy, more happy to be home now and back into ministry, and we're back into filming some more programs, and we're just glad to be back doing this.
Well, very, very thankful to WTJR for keeping us on the air and rerunning the programs that we had filmed and having those shown. But as Rocky said, to be here taping new ones and to continue on in this ministry and here in Quincy, we just really are blessed. We are blessed.
Absolutely right. Now, what I'd like to do on these programs here, we're filming 12 of them, these 3 days that we're here right now, 12 new programs. And I brought with me some hats and shirts and things from the ship. You know, the aircraft carrier is not alone when it goes out to sea. It's got its air wing on board, all the different squadrons, and we have escort ships that go with us. And so I've been trying to highlight on every program at the start of it some of those folks. And so I'd like to put up here now on the carrier itself. The airplanes are owned by a guy we call CAG, the commander of the air group. And this is a shirt from Carrier Air Wing 17, or CAG 17. And each one of those logos up there is from an individual squadron. One F-14 squadron, 3 F-18 squadrons, electronic warfare jets called the EA-6B Prowlers, they're up there. The Hawkeye, the big radar plane, our helos that support us, and then our what we call CODS, Carrier Onboard Delivery Squadron, that brings all our parts and supplies and all that. So this is this shirt from CAG 17, and here's a hat and another couple of patches. I'll get them up here and let's see if I can get this all together. But these are patches, and you know, we love patches in the Navy, and this is the hat there from CAG 17, Carrier Air Wing 17. And of course, on the one on my hand, where my fingers are, is the JFK, the John F. Kennedy, which is the aircraft carrier that supports all that good stuff. And of course, all those patches. This is what Navy guys do with patches. We have flight jackets, and we have patches on the flight jackets, kind of one of those you know, been there, done that kind of thing. So But I was a little too fast for the cameraman. Sorry there. Here's a hat, too, that I got when I was on Malta, which we're going to get into in just a minute here, the program. And the reason that I like hats, I'll get down in there, is that's the reason I like hats. But this is a hat I bought on the island of Malta because I went out when I was there and I didn't have a hat with me. And with a noodle like this, you got to have a hat or that Mediterranean sun will burn your noggin in a heartbeat. But the reason I wanted to promote each and one of the squadrons and ships and all that kind of stuff, and also to talk a little bit about and thank our veterans, because if it wasn't for what their sacrifices, we couldn't be on TV, we couldn't be here doing this show, enjoying our religious freedom and freedom of speech. And so, we thank our World War II vets. That's a generation that's leaving us very quickly, and we thank them for their service. Without them, we'd be speaking Japanese or German, one or the other. But of no less significance are our vets from the Korean War, from the Vietnam War, from the Gulf War, right up to now with the Afghanistan and Iraqi War. The sacrifices of our vets is out there. Is what allows us to live the way we live here in the States. Al-Qaeda attacked us because they hate our freedoms. They hate our religious freedom, and those folks are out there taking it to the enemy. We haven't had any hits on this country since September the 11th, 2001, and the reason is because we took the war to the enemy over there. And so we owe our vets a lot, and we thank them, and we appreciate it. Just want to bring that out on our show. But without further ado, let's go ahead and let's get right. I shouldn't have used a do. I'm mad at the French. They didn't support it, so I won't use that word anymore. Without further delay, let's get right into today's program. And again, this is program number 64, and it's titled Malta and the Book of Mormon. Now, you may be saying, what possible relationship is there between Malta and the Book of Mormon? Well, I hope to bring that out to you. Now, on the John F. Kennedy, it's stationed down in Mayport, Florida, which is right outside of Jacksonville. Monday morning, June the 7th, 2004, the Kennedy departed and headed overseas for wartime deployment. Now, we headed out. We headed to the Persian Gulf, but on the way, we did an exercise off the east coast of the U.S., and then we went in and we sailed through the Mediterranean, and while we were going through the Med, we stopped at the island of Malta for 5 days of, we call it liberty in the Navy, but it's rest and relaxation, 5 days off to go and kind of relax a little bit. And while we were there, I took a tour of the city of Valletta, which is the capital city there on the island. And I went, and part of that tour was to go to the National Museum of Archaeology. Now, I found out that the history of Malta is really, it's kind of neat. It's very fascinating. And just so you can see where Malta is, let's put it up on the screen. This is where Malta is located. Now, if you look on the screen, almost dead center in there, you see Italy, the boot of Italy, and then Sicily right off of the toe of the boot. Now, directly below that, you see the little words there, Malta. Well, that's right by this little bitty island. That's where Malta is. It's right down there below Sicily and below Italy. Now, Malta consists of 3 small inhabited islands in the center of the Mediterranean. And the name of those islands is Malta, Gozo, and Comino. And those 3 little islands together only boast a total area, landmass-wise, of 122 square miles. Well, how small is that? Well, it's pretty small, I'll tell you. Rhode Island, we all know that Rhode Island is the smallest state in the Union. But Rhode Island has 1,045 square miles in size. Well, Malta is only 122. So Rhode Island, the little bitty state of Rhode Island, is 8.5 times larger than Malta is.
But I'm not sure if this is in your script, but just like to say that there's probably a lot of folks out there that know from their Bible that Malta is the island where Paul was shipwrecked and shook the viper from his hand. And I'm sure there's lots of people that know that is where Malta is and what Malta is in the Bible. But there may be some of you out there when he's saying Malta, they're going, okay.
Kind of think I heard that somewhere.
But I heard it somewhere, but exactly what is it? Well, that's exactly where...
That's where Paul was shipwrecked.
That's exactly where Paul was shipwrecked. So I just
and actually,
interject that.
I got this little Paul, it's called Paul's Shipwrecked Church. I had my picture taken by the door of it there, you know.
Well, I wasn't sure you were going to share that, so...
You know, the history of Malta is really fascinating. From the Phoenicians to the Byzantine era, was really interesting to me when I went to this museum. And the reason for that is because the Phoenicians came to Malta in the year 750 BC, before Christ. 750 BC is when the Phoenicians took over the islands, and they were there up until the year 218 BC. But the one area that I really kind of took a look at and really paid attention to when I was at the museum was the Phoenician era, 750 BC, up through the Byzantine era, which ended 870 AD. And that's when the Arabs overtook the island, and it came under Arab rule. But during that time frame, 750 BC to 218 was Phoenicians, and then the Roman Empire took the island, and they controlled it from 218 BC to 535 AD. But it's really a fascinating history. It's very interesting. But what I took note on that was, see, the Book of Mormon, 90% of the Book of Mormon takes place in the time frame 600 BC, before Christ, to 421 AD. So that little over 1,000-year period is 90% or more of the Book of Mormon. And so this history of Malta with the Phoenicians through the Byzantine area overlaps the Book of Mormon time frame, or 90% of it, 600 BC to 421 AD. Now, the Mormon Church says that the Book of Mormon is Holy Scripture and contains the fullness of the Mormon Gospel. And I want to put that quote up for you on this screen so you can see that this is what it says. It contains the fullness of the everlasting gospel. Now that quote in there, D&C 29, 42, 12, and 135, 3, is out of the Doctrine and Covenants, which is some other Mormon scripture. It says, it contains the fullness of the everlasting gospel, with those Doctrine and Covenant quotes, and an abridged account of God's dealings with the ancient inhabitants of the American continent. So the Book of Mormon is supposed to contain the fullness of the Mormon gospel, their religion, and it's supposed to be a history of the early American continent inhabitants, the ancestors of today's American Indians. That's what the Book of Mormon says. Okay, and that quote was out of Mormon Doctrine. So while I was walking through this National Museum of Archaeology in Valletta, I stopped and viewed some of the displays they had there of some coins that were recovered from their archaeological digs on the islands of Malta and Gozo. Now these coins, which were really neat, beautifully preserved, they begin in the Phoenician era and they go all the way through their history up to modern times. But they had two tiers of coins there that were displayed for the Phoenician time frame, which was 750 BC to 218 BC, when the Romans overran the islands. Now one of the tiers was labeled Melita and the other was labeled Gallos, G-A-U-L-O-S, which Melita and Gallos are these old terms that they had for Malta, Melita, Gallos, Gozo, one of the other islands. So that's how they were labeled. And but I found that these coins were just really fascinating. I really picked up on it and was really interested in it. Because here on this tiny little island nation of Malta, looking at these coins left by the Phoenicians from their reign, 750 BC to 218 BC. Not only were these coins displayed, but they also had a lot of information about that they had got from the archaeological digs on who the kings were and the leaders and all this other kind of information. So it was fascinating. Now, the history, the very colorful and interesting history of Malta was there to be discovered in not only this museum but other places, I'm sure. But you know, these discoveries there, this looking at all this stuff was so interesting to me because it made me reflect on the claims of Mormonism with respect to the Book of Mormon. What archaeology do we have with respect to the Book of Mormon? Well, the simple answer is None. Zero. Don't get my hand there right. Zero. Okay? There's no archaeology to support the Book of Mormon. Now, in the introduction in the Book of Alma, in the Book of Mormon, it says that Nephi coinage sent forth. Nephite coinage sent forth. Now, in the Book of Mormon, there's two primary peoples, the Nephites and the Lamanites. And in this chapter 11 introduction in the Book of Alma, it says Nephite coinage set forth. And then in the verses 4 through 19 of Alma 11, it lays out this monetary system. Now stick with me. I'm going to run through a whole bunch of slides here and read through this. And I'll read about this monetary system. So I'll go ahead and put the first slide up and we'll roll through about 5 or 6 slides. It says, now these are the names of the different pieces of their gold and of their silver according to their value. And the names are given by the Nephites, for they did not reckon after the manner of the Jews who were at Jerusalem. Neither did they measure after the manner of the Jews, but they altered their reckoning and their measure according to the minds and circumstances of the people. Now, bring the camera back to me for a second if you would. Sorry, I said I was going to roll through all that. But something caught my eye in there, and that is that it says that they didn't, here's the coinage and here's the measure system because they didn't reckon after the Jews. Well, this is a history of supposedly, the Book of Mormon is a bunch of Jews sailed by boats over to this country. Well, that doesn't make any sense, that they changed their whole coin system and their measure system. Because I can tell you, I've been in the Navy for over 30 years. I have been to probably 100 ports around the world. And then every time you pull into these foreign ports, and they use different monetary system than we do, they have these little briefs and they tell you how their coin system and their monetary system works, but because I'm an American and you can't think that way. So like when you go to the Philippines and they have pesos, or you go to Hong Kong dollars, or to Sweden and it's kronas, you know how much it is, the difference in the monetary system, but you have to, like, and I'll just say for instance in the Philippines, I think the last time I was there was 15 pesos to the dollar. So when you go somewhere and you say how much is that, and they say 210 pesos. I have to do the division and equate it back, and then I go, okay, 210 pesos, that's about $15 or something. Well, that's not worth $15. But you have to equate it in your head because we're used to dollars. We're used to the way that we think. So why would these people who came from Israel come over here and change the whole way of doing business? I mean, that dog doesn't hunt. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't, but that's what it said. So let's go ahead and continue. Let's roll on and we'll go through all of this coinage system. So let's pick it up with slide 4. It says, in every generation until the reign of the judges, they having been established by King Mosiah. Now the reckoning is thus: a senine of gold, a seon of gold, a shum of gold, and a limnah of gold, a senum of silver, an amner of silver, an Ezram of silver, and an onti of silver. Slide 5 says, a senum of silver was equal to a senine of gold, and either for a measure of barley, and also for a measure of every kind of grain. Now the amount of a seon of gold was twice the value of a senine, and a shum of gold was twice the value of a seon. On to slide 6. And a limnah of gold was the value of them all, and an amnor of silver was as great as 2 senums, and an Ezram of silver was as great as 4 senums, and an onti was as great as them all. Now this is the value of the lesser numbers of their reckoning. A shiblon is half of a senum. Therefore a shiblon, for a half a measure of barley. And a shiblum is a half of a shiblon. And a leah is the half of a shiblum. Now this is their number according to the reckoning. Now an antion of gold is equal to 3 shiblons. I made it through that. I mean, wow, that's a mouthful. But there you have it. That's the listing in the Book of Mormon of this coinage system. Stating all the names of the coins that were used by these ancient inhabitants, and so the Mormon Church claims. Now, the Book of Mormon also speaks, now if you got to have coins, silver and gold and whatever, you have to understand metallurgy and how to melt and smelt and pour coins and all that kind of stuff. Now, the Book of Mormon speaks about metallurgy, and here's a quote on that. This is from the book of Ether, Ether chapter 7, verse 9. Wherefore he came to the hill Ephraim, and did molten out of the hill, and made swords out of steel for those whom he had drawn away with him. And after he had armed them with swords, he returned to the city Nahor, and gave battle unto his brother Korihor, by which means he obtained the kingdom, and restored it unto his father. Now, what's important in this that's on the screen here is note the claim about steel swords. Okay, very important. Now let's go and take another look at another quote here, which talks about metallurgy in another book in the Book of Mormon called 2nd Nephi. And I'll put it up for you. It says, "And I did teach my people to build buildings, and to work in all manner of wood, and of iron, and of copper, and of brass, and of steel, and of gold, and of silver, and of precious ores, which were in great abundance." So, talking about metallurgy, talking about swords, and we just read that big long thing talking about all the different coinage. So where are the coins and the swords and all of the metallurgy that's talked about in the Book of Mormon? Okay, well, let me put a slide up for you that shows all of this archaeological finds in the Bible, and I'll put it up for you on the screen right now. Well, there it is. And you know, folks, there's not a problem on your screen. There's not something wrong. You know, underneath that heading is all of the archaeology that has ever been found for the Book of Mormon. None. Zero. Zilch. Nada. There isn't any. There's never been any archaeology whatsoever found to support the Book of Mormon. So that, you know, I hate to be that graphic or to try to be a wise guy here, but that's the truth. There's never been any, zero, none, no archaeology ever to support the Book of Mormon. None's been found.
No. And they have been looking.
Oh, they've been looking very hard.
They've got archaeologists around the world looking, and they have found nothing.
Nothing at all. And you know, it was kind of interesting. As we left, we were living in a fifth wheel down in Florida on the naval base down there. We left the fifth wheel. We're heading into the airport to fly here to shoot these programs. And I just had this thought. I told Helen, I said, I need to go to a bookstore. And I said, you know, why? We need to get to the airport. And I said, you know what?
I said, we have books with us, honey.
Yeah. But I said, I need to go to a bookstore. I want to get a copy of Archaeology Today. This is a magazine, Biblical Archaeology Today. And I said, I want to get that because I want to look in there and see if there's anything about biblical coins. Because, you know, well, I buy this magazine, and inside the back cover is this. You see this big, huge, this is a coin that they found in France from the Roman era. And, you know, off a whim, I said, I just want to stop and buy this magazine. It wasn't a whim.
It wasn't a whim.
God knew that it was going to fit perfectly with this program.
It was a divine appointment.
Yeah,
it certainly was.
But Biblical Archaeology Today, a magazine comes out every 2 months. It's just full of all the archaeology digs of the Bible. And, you know, right there, inside the back cover, and this coin from the Roman era, and I think it says 2nd century BC, so 200 BC, which is the same time frame as the Book of Mormon, 600 BC to 421 AD. You know, isn't it amazing all of the archaeology that there is to support the Bible? There is so much archaeology to support the Bible that one person can't know it all.
No.
And you can buy shekels, the widow's mite, drachmas, the different coins that are mentioned in the Bible. You can buy them. Usually they probably do. I didn't look all through it. They probably have ads right here in Biblical Archaeology Review, where you can purchase these things. Why? Because they exist. They found them by the bucket loads.
Yeah, in abundance. I mean,
absolutely.
They're all over.
And you know, God didn't leave us nothing with which to help bolster our faith. The Bible, the archaeology of the Bible is just, it's like I say, it's more than one person can know. I mean, I've been to Israel. I went with the Navy we pulled into Haifa, Israel. I went on a Holy Land tour. You know, I've been to Nazareth. Okay, I've been to Jerusalem. I've walked the walls in Jerusalem. I've been to the Garden Tomb. I had lunch at the Sea of Galilee and ate Peter's fish, as they call it. You know, those places exist. The Jordan River, it's there. You know, the place names, the people. I mean, we have digs that go in Babylon, over in Iraq, where they found these clay tablets, I think they're called a Nimya or whatever, these clay tablets that date to the Babylon era that have Abraham's name in them. They're transactions with Father Abraham. We have archaeology which supports the Bible and boatloads of it. Mm-hmm. Why is it that the same God that left all of this archaeological evidence to support the Bible left nothing to support the Book of Mormon? That dog doesn't hunt either. It doesn't make sense. Because why would God leave all of this archaeological evidence to support the Bible and then leave nothing to support the Book of Mormon? Well, it's pretty simple. The Bible's real. Those people existed. Those coins existed. Those cities and rivers and mountains and all of that stuff existed. But not one place name, not one mountain, not one city, not one coin, not one person, nothing of the Book of Mormon has ever been found, nor will be found. No. Because the Book of Mormon is not real. It's a total fabrication. And the evidence proves it. Right. So, you know, why do we take the challenge of Brigham Young to take up the Bible and to prove the religion of the Mormons? We do it based off his challenge, and when we do, we find that Mormonism falls apart. It comes apart at the seams because it doesn't have a foundation.
It comes up lacking, very lacking.
The Bible is God's Word, and it is true. And the place names and the people and everything else are true. So, folks, it's so important. This TV show, this WTJR's electronic footprint covers Nauvoo. It's important for the Mormons to hear this information, and important for you Christians out there to be educated on this, so that you won't
share your
so
faith.
You can talk to them and tell them and bring them to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. Because the Christ they follow is out of the Book of Mormon and other teachings which are totally false. And that's what we do in this program, is show that. So please support WTJR. Without them, we couldn't be broadcasting. And we ask for your support to help us so we can continue this program on the air. I hope you like it. Praise the Lord, we have the opportunity to do it. 5 seconds left. God bless you. See you next week.